So what if the best way for a musician to be truly heard today is just completely erase their face?
I mean, it sounds like a total contradiction, right?
Right.
Because we live in this era where visibility is just everything.
Yeah.
You're supposed to fight for every single second of eye contact or every scrap of attention.
Right.
So choosing to go completely faceless feels almost like career suicide.
It does, but imagine stumbling across this new band. You hit play and the sound just grabs you by the throat. It's totally immersive. So naturally, your first instinct is to go looking for the story, right?
Of course.
You want to know who is making this noise. But when you look them up, there are no real names. There are no childhood photographs scattered across some curated Instagram grid.
Right.
There's no PR-approved origin story about how they met in a coffee shop. And there isn't even this neatly packaged personal tragedy to make you feel sympathetic toward them.
Nothing at all.
Nothing. There are just two musicians, a guitar, a drum kit, and masks.
It's incredibly unsettling when you really think about it.
Yeah.
Because we have been so deeply conditioned to look for a face,
Yeah.
to search for a living, breathing person behind the art. So when we are denied that basic human connection, it feels transgressive.
It really does.
It almost feels like a rule is being broken.
Yeah, it's like reaching out in the dark for a handrail that just isn't there.
And that brings us to the core mission of our deep dive today.
Mm-hmm.
We're exploring this wildly provocative concept based on this fascinating article called The Band That Doesn't Need a Face. We're going to look at what actually happens to our brains and our ears when the music forces itself to be more important than the musician.
And this isn't just some abstract theoretical philosophy class question either.
No.
It is an active, real-world experiment that is being conducted right now by this bizarre experimental rock duo from Saguenay, Quebec.
Okay, before we dive into the heavy psychology of what they're actually doing, I need to make sure I'm even saying their name right.
Yes, we definitely need to get that right. Because just looking at it on the page, I feel like I'm going to butcher it.
Yeah?
And getting the name right feels like the necessary password to enter their weird little universe.
Right.
It looks like Angine de Poitrine. Help me out here.
You're actually very close, but let's lock in the pronunciation because it has a very specific cadence.
Okay.
Let's start with the first word. It's pronounced Angine.
Angine. So on like a soft, almost nasal sound.
Exactly.
And gene with a soft G, like the start of the word vision.
You got it. Angine.
Angine.
Then the middle word is simple. It's just duh, like a short blunt sound.
Angine de.
And the final word is poitrine. You start with poi, which rhymes with spa, but has really distinct woo sound in the middle of it.
Wah.
Yes, and then you finish with trine.
Poitrine. Okay, let me put the whole thing together.
Go for it.
Angine de Poitrine. Angine de Poitrine. Oh, I actually love how that feels to say.
It's great, right?
It has this strange bouncy rhythm to it. Angine de Poitrine.
It's very rhythmic. And mastering that name is the first step because this duo, Angine de Poitrine, is using their total anonymity along with some incredibly complex musical architecture to completely subvert the modern music industry's absolute obsession with celebrity biography.
Wow.
They are forcing a total reevaluation of how we pay attention to art.
Well, let's lay the groundwork here. Before we can fully grasp why their approach is so radical, we have to talk about the rules they are breaking. We need to talk about the cult of personality in modern music.
Yeah, so the current landscape of music culture is fundamentally and deeply biographical.
Right.
We have reached a saturation point where we don't simply consume an album anymore. We consume an artist's entire life.
Yeah, it's so true.
The music has slowly become secondary to the biography.
When you find a new artist today, you don't just get 12 tracks, you get their entire existence.
Exactly.
You know where they grew up, you know what their bedroom looks like, you know their political opinions. You probably even know what they ate for breakfast yesterday because they posted it on a story.
The expectation is that artists must function as permanent media objects.
Media objects, yeah.
They aren't just producing songs in a studio. They are constantly and exhaustingly producing a personality.
Right.
And if we were being honest about consumer behavior, that personality is what the audience is truly buying into.
Right. It's the product.
The song is often just a delivery vehicle for the persona.
Okay, let's unpack this because it feels like a song isn't a standalone piece of art anymore. It's just the background music to a social media feed.
That's a great way to put it.
But I have to push back on this a little bit. Is this actually a bad thing, or is it just fundamental human nature?
What do you mean?
Well, we are social creatures, right? We gather around campfires to hear people tell stories. We want to connect with the creator. We want to feel like we understand the soul of the person speaking to us through those headphones.
That is a very fair defense of the audience. I mean, it is entirely human to seek out that connection. We are wired for empathy. But the argument Angine de Poitrine is making through their very existence is that this natural instinct for connection has been weaponized.
Oh, weaponized.
Yes, it's been turned into an industrial system that actively distracts from the art itself. So they approach this system from the exact opposite direction. They perform strictly under the pseudonyms Khn de Poitrine and Klek de Poitrine.
Just Khn and Klek.
Just Khn and Klek. And they don't treat it like a playful puzzle for fans to solve either. If you go to their official website, there is an explicit, serious warning against speculating about their real identities.
Which is such an aggressive move. I mean, it's basically putting up a giant neon sign that says, "Do not look at the man behind the curtain." And honestly, we demand that you stop caring if there even is a man behind the curtain.
That distinction is paramount. They aren't hiding their real names to build hype or to manufacture some edgy marketing gimmick.
Yeah.
They are actively refusing to make human identity their central product.
Right.
They are denying you, the listener, that campfire connection you just mentioned. And when you don't know who you are listening to, you suddenly have zero instructions on how you are supposed to interpret the art.
But this brings us to a really fascinating crossroads, because if their goal is to completely reject the cult of personality, if they want to be totally anonymous, why not just pull a J.D. Salinger?
To disappear.
Yeah, why not perform in pitch darkness? Or release all their music online with just a blank white square for an album cover? Why have a visual presence at all if the visual presence is the problem?
Well, because hiding in the shadows is just a form of absence. What they're doing is much more psychological. There's an apparent contradiction at play here. A mask is theoretically supposed to make a person less visible,
Right.
but Angine de Poitrine's masks make them significantly more visible. They demand that you look at them.
Let's talk about the actual look of this band, because we're talking about giant papier-mâché heads.
Giant, absurdly proportioned papier-mâché heads, and they pair them with these stark black and white costumes and this incredibly exaggerated physical presence on stage. The visual identity is completely unhinged. None of this is minimalist or subtle. It is aggressively and undeniably theatrical.
So they aren't fading away into the background. They are commanding your visual attention, pulling your eyes right to them, but they are giving you absolutely zero human information while they do it.
There's a brilliant conceptual trick happening here, which the source article calls anonymity through replacement.
Anonymity through replacement.
Exactly. They aren't achieving anonymity by disappearing. The human face vanishes, yes, but instead of leaving a void or an empty dark stage, a massive symbol takes its place.
The papier-mâché head physically replaces the human face.
And this causes a massive psychological shift in the audience's brain. Because normally when you watch a performer, your brain's facial recognition software just automatically kicks in.
Right, you're scanning them.
Your first subconscious question is always, who is this person? You look for micro-expressions. You look for signs of aging. You look for emotional tells.
Like a smirk or a furrowed brow or something.
Exactly. But when that human face is replaced by an absurd, static, giant symbol, your brain literally cannot ask, who is this person anymore? It short circuits. You are forced to ask a much weirder question.
What is this thing?
Yes. What is this thing? And the moment your brain asks that question, it completely severs the standard biographical relationship between the performer and the audience. You can't project your empathy onto a papier-mâché block in the same way.
So if I'm sitting in the audience asking, what is this thing, and I can't rely on the artist's life story or their facial expressions for clues, I'm forced into doing something that is honestly becoming pretty rare. I actually have to listen to the music itself.
You have no other choice.
But sonically, how do you replace human emotion? How does the absence of all that biographical baggage actually change the experience of hearing the sound?
It changes everything about how our ears process audio. To understand why we have to look at how biography functions as a literal filtering mechanism for our ears.
Oh, the listening filter. This concept totally blew my mind when I was reading the source material.
It's fascinating.
If I tell you as a listener that a specific singer-songwriter had a really difficult, traumatic childhood, you are subconsciously going to hear sadness and struggle in their guitar chords, even if they are playing a major scale.
Exactly. Or consider the classic breakup album.
Yeah.
If we know an artist just went through a terrible, highly publicized divorce, we automatically hear heartbreak in every single lyric. even if the song was written 3 years before they even met their ex.
So true.
Or if we know a musician spent a decade studying traditional jazz in New Orleans, our brains will actively strain to find those jazz influences in a pop song.
Yeah.
We use the biography to tell us what we are supposed to be hearing.
Right. We're basically cheating. We're using the artist's Wikipedia page as an answer key for a test we haven't even taken yet.
That's exactly what it is.
We read the summary so we don't have to do the hard work of interpreting the art ourselves. So with Angine de Poitrine, that biographical answer key is just ripped out of our hands. We just have Khn and Klek in their giant heads. What fills the void when the answer key is gone?
Without a biography to lean on, the music has to stand entirely on its structural and technical merits. Angine de Poitrine's sound isn't defined by sweeping emotional narratives. It is defined by highly specific, complex musical systems.
Let's get into the mechanics of those systems, because this is where the experimental rock label really earns its keep. One of the core pillars of their sound is microtonal guitar and bass.
Right, so microtonality immediately signals a radical departure from anything you hear on standard Western pop radio.
Okay.
To put it simply, Western music is largely built on a standard scale of 12 notes. Think of the keys on a piano.
Right, the white and black keys.
Microtonality explores the infinite space between those notes.
So if I'm picturing a piano, microtonality is like finding hidden keys stuffed deep into the cracks between the standard white and black keys.
And that is a perfect way to visualize it. And when a musician plays those hidden keys to our Western-trained ears, it immediately sounds slightly alien.
I can imagine.
It might sound discordant or slightly off-pitch or deeply unsettling. It physically forces your brain to pay attention because the mathematical geometry of the sound is unfamiliar.
Wow.
You can't just passively listen to it while doing the dishes. It demands cognitive engagement.
And on top of those alien notes, there's the real-time construction of the music. The way they describe their process is all about adding and removing sonic motifs through layered loops.
Which requires immense technical musicianship and focus. They aren't just pressing play on a backing track. They are building the architecture of the track live in front of you layer by layer.
That sounds intense.
And driving this entire process is Klek's very controlled, specific, rhythmic approach, which relies heavily on asymmetrical rhythms.
Meaning you can't just tap your foot to it.
No, it's not a standard four-on-the-floor dance beat that you can just nod your head to without thinking. Asymmetrical rhythms trip you up. They have odd time signatures, unexpected pauses.
Right.
They make you do a little bit of mental math just to find the downbeat.
And within all that math, there is also a heavy reliance on repetition and, surprisingly, on silence.
Silence is perhaps the most powerful tool in their arsenal.
Really?
Yeah, when you take these asymmetrical, jarring rhythms and you pair them with microtonal alien loops, and then you punctuate all of it with intentional, heavy, prolonged silence, you are creating a very rigid, hyper-specific structure.
Okay, I see.
The takeaway here is profound. Instead of being handed a soft, emotional biography to decode the music, the listener is handed a hard, physical architecture.
I love that word architecture.
Yeah.
Because a biography, like a diary, is soft. It's subjective. It's filled with feelings and memories. Architecture is math. It's physics. It's load-bearing walls and empty spaces.
Exactly.
When you listen to Khn and Klek, it's like you are walking into a massive cathedral they constructed.
Yes!
When you walk into a cathedral, you don't ask what the stonemason had for breakfast. You look up at how the arches support the ceiling. That's what this band is doing with loops and silence. You have to appreciate the engineering of it on its own terms.
And you are forced to navigate that sonic architecture entirely without a guide.
Okay, but this raises a huge dilemma. Removing that biographical filter forces us to focus on the architecture, sure, but at the end of the day, human beings are still wired for stories.
We are.
We crave a narrative arc. So in our hyper-connected modern era, what actually happens when you intentionally starve an audience of information?
To understand the fallout of that information starvation, we have to contextualize this in the reality of the 2026 internet ecosystem. We have to look at visibility itself as a commodity.
A never-ending content machine.
Yes, the internet has made artists more visible and accessible than at any point in human history.
Right.
But paradoxically, that endless supply of personal access has made anonymity infinitely more valuable. Today, every single aspect of a person is processed as content.
Everything.
Your face is content. Your quirky personality is content. Your private life, your political time, tastes, your visceral reactions to pop culture. It is all grist for the algorithm's mill.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
So Angine de Poitrine is stepping onto the stage and asking a vital, almost dangerous question. What if we simply stop feeding the machine?
But wait, are they really starving the machine? Because there's a fascinating contradiction here. They haven't completely stopped feeding it.
What do you mean?
Well, they still have an image. Those giant paper mache heads are highly photogenic. They still perform live in front of crowds. They still have a website and they still communicate with the public. It's just that the identity they are presenting is a total fiction.
That is the crux of the experiment. The mythology has become larger than the biography,
Oh.
and this leads to an incredibly strange result. We assume that anonymity eliminates narrative.
Right, that it just erases it.
We think that if you hide your face, you create a blank slate, a void of story. But that's not what happens. Anonymity simply transfers the production of the narrative from the artist directly to the audience.
The audience takes over the storytelling.
Because the audience is starved of real, hard biographical facts.
Yeah.
Their brains cannot handle the vacuum. So they begin constructing their own explanations.
Oh.
The less official information they receive, the more wild and elaborate theories they create.
Oh, this makes perfect sense. You give the internet a mystery, a puzzle with missing pieces, and they will lose their absolute minds trying to solve it.
Exactly. The fans want to decode the masks. They want
True.
to parse the visual language of the black and white costumes. They debate furiously on forums about how to categorize the music, trying to pinpoint exactly which obscure avant-garde influences Khn and Klek might be secretly drawing from.
So the audience is doing the work.
The audience is essentially doing the grueling narrative work that a highly paid PR team usually does. But they are doing it through the lens of their own active imagination, rather than just passively consuming a press release.
So what does this all mean for us? For the average listener sitting here in 2026? Because we are living in a world that is just overflowing with information.
We are.
We are drowning in context, backstory, and behind-the-scenes footage for every single piece of media we consume. It feels like Angine de Poitrine is offering a completely different model for how we should pay attention.
They absolutely are. They're actively retraining their audience's brains. The standard modern model is you identify the artist, you judge their biography, you decide if you agree with their lifestyle or politics, and then decide if you want to give their music a chance.
Right, it's so backwards.
Angine de Poitrine flips that sequence entirely on its head. They are forcing the audience to listen first and identify later.
Or perhaps never.
Or perhaps never. You may never know who Khn and Klek really are, what they look like, or where they go when they take the masks off. And that has to be okay. The art has to be enough to sustain you.
Which brings this entire strange journey together so perfectly. The fact that their release on Monumental Movement Records feels so refreshing right now isn't because Khn and Klek have disappeared into the ether. It's because they have successfully created a space where the artist's face is no longer the center of gravity in the room.
And this raises a deeply unsettling question, one that expands far beyond just an experimental rock duo from Quebec.
Okay, what is it?
If stripping away an artist's biography makes us focus more purely, more intensely on the actual architecture of the art itself, how much of our supposed taste in everything else is compromised?
Oh, man. That is a heavy thought.
Think about it. The books we claim to love, the movies.
Yeah.
We watch the brands, we faithfully buy the news we choose to follow daily. How much of our preference is actually just us reacting to a carefully crafted, deeply comforting backstory?
I see what you mean.
Are we ever really evaluating the true inherent quality of the thing right in front of us? If we didn't know who directed the film or who wrote the article or what the lead singer looked like, would we still think it was brilliant?
Wow.
Or were we just happily consuming the biography?
I think I'm going to go listen to that architecture right now.